There's a buzz in Blacksburg, and who can blame them? Franklin's here and ready to go.
A flash to the past where two teams refused to score?
And a look into the ACC as we slowly approach crunch time.
All that and more coming up on this week's edition of the 3304 Sports Tip-Off. Hello and welcome to the lovely Center for the Arts here in Blacksburg for another edition of the 3304 Sports Tip-Off. So glad you can join us. I'm Robert Bateman, and the dashing man to my left is the one and only Taylor Bretl. Taylor, the ACC, let's just jump right into it. It is jam-packed this year. A ton of teams at the top that have really taken a step up from where the conference was last season. So I just want your overall thoughts on the ACC as a whole.
Yeah, the ACC, it's very competitive. Sounds like an obvious statement, but you even look, it's only February and March Madness is still a whole month away, but you look at the possible field, you could almost have like 10 ACC teams that are in March Madness. It's really tightly contested, but some of the top dogs like Duke, who we saw here in Castle Coliseum a couple days ago, they are very strong. Fourth in the country, just one loss on the year in total, and yeah, it's a very strong dogfight going on in the ACC.
A dogfight for men's hoops for sure, and I just want to talk a little bit about all of the players. It feels like the ACC is just jam-packed with stars. You got Cameron Boozer with the Blue Devils. How about Michael Brown Jr. cooking things up for the Cardinals with Louisville? And guys like Caleb Wilson are just eating up the post for UNC.
Yeah, it's going to be one stacked draft class. I think you got to highlight Boozer. He's the big name. It's the name that a lot of people know when you're going to talk about him. But you got him and his brother as well. You can't forget about the Boozer twins. Their dad, Carlos Boozer, is at every game coaching them. You can see where they got the talent from. And yeah, Cameron Boozer, top 5 pick? Where do you think he could possibly end up come draft time?
I think he could definitely land as a top 5. And while March is inching closer by the day, it feels like every game is starting to grow in importance. For more on the current state of ACC men's hoops, it's our very own Everett Actolay.
With this being 3304's first studio show in the month of February, I thought I would take some time during the season of love to show some love to the ACC. With March being next up on the calendar, it is do or die for the college basketball world. With that, I wanted to take a look at the teams that are looking to dance and if they might get their ticket punched. At the very top of the food chain is the Duke Blue Devils. Duke has laid waste to the ACC so far this season. They stand at a perfect 10-0 in conference play and 21-1 in total. They have proven their ability to not only play with a lead, but secure wins in close games. Headlined by superstar freshman Cameron Boozer, the projected National Player of the Year and potential #1 pick in this year's NBA draft, the sky is the limit for this Blue Devils team. In a tier below Duke, you can find teams like Clemson, Virginia, and NC State. While these three teams all have 2 or less conference losses, they haven't had the sheer domination that Duke has. These three teams have handled conference play great. Both Virginia and NC State have wins over ranked teams like Louisville and Clemson, while Clemson's consistently taking care of inferior opponents and holding on to their one-loss resume. What separates these teams from the rest is that they do continue to take care of business on a nightly basis. Clemson, UVA, and NC State have all avoided big losses, and it keeps them comfortably as locks for March Madness. Down below Duke, Clemson, UVA, and NC State are the teams that fans might struggle to understand. The 2 ranked teams of number 14 North Carolina and number 24 Louisville. They get national recognition, and they are surely be locks in the tournament, but they can never seem to establish themselves as threats on the biggest stage. For North Carolina, they have had their extreme highs and extreme lows this season. While they have taken care of teams like Kansas and Virginia, they've also suffered blowout losses to the likes of Michigan State and SMU. They need to capture the art of consistency if they want to go on a tournament run.
Thanks, Everett. Well, Rob, the ACC, like you said, like Everett's talked about, it is a dogfight. And you look at this for the Virginia Tech Hokies. They're going to Raleigh, North Carolina. They got to take on an NC State Wolfpack team that is on a pretty hot streak in the ACC themselves. They won a couple of games in a row, just took down Boopie Miller and SMU. What are the Hokies going to have to do to stay in contention and not fall too far down in the ACC standings?
Well, the biggest thing is the Hokies have to win on the road. They have 4 quad 1 road games left in their schedule: NC State, Clemson, Miami, and UVA. So a win in Raleigh would be huge for the Hokies to really build their resume coming into March.
Yeah, and this NC State team, a lot of people forget they were ranked in the top 25. They have fallen out, but still 17-6. They're 8-2 in the ACC, so they are just close to getting back into that top 25. So while it might not be a ranked win in the moment, this could end up being a quad 1 win for the Hokies come March.
Yeah, Will Wade and Quadir Copeland have the Wolfpack balling out right now, so it will definitely be a tough test for Mike Young's squad, especially on the road.
Yeah, well, Rob, we've talked a lot about basketball on this tip-off show, but the Super Bowl is right around the corner, and I see one of our reporters' final score predictions for the big game is 47-24. Wait, I'm sorry. It says here that was actually the score of a full regulation basketball game between Virginia Tech and NC State in 2019. Well, for more on the unforgettable game 7 years ago, here's our very own Richard Terry.
Virginia Tech visits the Lenovo Center, formerly PNC Arena, this Saturday for a big-time ACC matchup against the NC State Wolfpack. The Hokies are 3-0 on the road against the Wolfpack, dating back to 2019. Now, speaking of that 2019 matchup, this was arguably the biggest in the series and also one of the worst games in basketball history. The 7th-year anniversary of one of the most woeful performances in collegiate hoops history took place on Tuesday, and the game itself took place on February 2nd, 2019. Hokie Nation was riding high on players like Kerry Blackshear Jr. and Nikhil Alexander-Walker and Justin Robinson, who had Tech up to 12th in the rankings. On the other side, the 23rd-ranked Wolfpack were looking to bounce back at home following a devastating defeat to UVA in overtime. Like this Saturday's game, both teams were looking for a spark to help carry some momentum for the back half of the season. What resulted was a game that left fans saying this. The final score was Virginia Tech 47, NC State 24, and I promise you, this was not a football game. Even without Justin Robinson, the Hokies' star point guard, Tech would build off of a 6-point, 20-14 halftime lead, with a larger 27-10 second half that embarrassed Wolfpack Nation. Now it's time to play the percentages game. Simply answer in your head if this percentage is good for college basketball. First, 17% from the field, and then 7% from three. If you answered that these were good percentages, we need to talk about your basketball mentality. But yes, NC State shot 2 for 28 from three and 9 for 54 from the field, which resulted in the lowest team field goal percentage in ACC history. And yes, both teams were ranked. Ultimately, that game was a fork in the road for both teams, showcasing where they would end up come March. The Hokies made the tournament and made it all the way to the Sweet 16, where they ultimately fell to Duke. NC State fans likely have nightmares of that game, as after that, they simply were not the same, from a ranked team in early February to an NIT team come March. Now, does this game foreshadow a possible Hokies grinding victory against a very hot NC State team? Blacksburg is hoping that history repeats itself and the Hokies get a huge quad one win, but just without a team missing more than 80% of their shots.
Well, hoops are currently the talk of the town, but let me remind you in case you forgot. James Franklin's at the helm, baby. Virginia Tech football has been riding a hype train that seems like it's headed straight towards the top of the ACC. And EJ Jones took his time to break down Coach Franklin's first recruiting class in Blacksburg. EJ, what do you got?
Virginia Tech football and head coach James Franklin is already looking towards the future of Hokie football. Recently hosting Junior Day for Class 27 and one standout Class 28 recruit. This year's Junior Day wasn't as big as it should have, mainly because the immense amount of snow covering the state of Virginia, but still many recruits came by to check out the campus, including two of the #1 recruits for Virginia for Class 27 and 28, Chris Whitehead and cornerback Langston Prejean. Chris Whitehead is the edge rusher from LC Bird in Richmond, and he's pretty much been offered by every major school in the nation. But he's scheduled for an official visit with the Hokies May 29th. Another in-state recruit, DB Xavion Miller from Richmond, has taken his Final Four, and he's also scheduled for May 29th for an official visit. Not only in-state recruits came by, but also some out-of-state recruits came by, like South Carolina's own Taji Watson, the wide receiver, defensive lineman Josh Fassbender from Cincinnati, Ohio, offensive tackle Dylan Lintel from Ohio, too, and a few others that was able to make the trip to Blacksburg. Virginia Tech has offered 199 prospects for the Class of 27, and overall, this is a very decent start to get the recruiting cycle started. Even with the weather issues taking over, the Hokies were still able to get both #1 recruits in Virginia and many to come by, with Virginia Tech applying pressure early on and hopefully a very successful 2026 season. Do not be surprised if Virginia Tech achieves another top 25 recruiting class.
Thanks, EJ. Well, while the men's team is playing NC State, the women's team is also playing NC State this weekend. What are they going to have to do to bounce back following that loss to Notre Dame on Thursday?
Yeah, Megan Duffy's squad won 7 straight games before that, so no need to sound the alarms, right? The Hokies are doing just fine. Now they get to come back to Castle Coliseum. And I think the player to really look at right now is Carly Wenzel. She's in her 4th year with the Hokies, her redshirt junior season, and she has been great for Virginia Tech all year long. So if she can continue her strong play into March, I think the Hokies will be looking really solid come tourney time.
Well, that's all we got for you today on the 3304 Sports Tip-Off Show. It's a big weekend for basketball in Blacksburg, a big weekend to go 2-0 against the NC State Wolfpack. For myself, Taylor Bretl, my co-host Robert Bateman, the reporters Richard Terry, EJ Jones, and Everett Actolay, we thank you once again for tuning in to 3304 Sports.